Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Full Court Press. I'm your host, Courtney Mims, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the show. And look, we have a brand new web camera. We have a brand new mic, so if they fall or do any weird stuff, it's not me, okay? It's them, all right? That's what's going on. You probably recognize the guy who's joining me on the show today. That's because it's former Hog Jimmy Whitt, and I'm so excited to have you on the show, not just because obviously, you know a lot when it comes to basketball, but also to get an update on what you're doing for the Hog fans out there. So give a little update before we get into the nitty gritty of Arkansas basketball and talk about that win over Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Tell
So
us what you're doing.
appreciate you having me. For one, I appreciate you having me. I enjoy doing stuff like this. An update. I was in California earlier, like a little bit last year. I've been with the Warriors G League team for the past 2 years. So I was technically still doing it, was gonna do it this year, but then I ruptured my Achilles like 3 days before the season started. So I'm rehabbing. So I came back to Dallas, Texas. So I kind of like to be here. So I'm doing that right now. That's why I warned you. That's
No,
why I warned you. We want to keep it positive. No, but it's fine.
no.
Everything's going good. Rehab's actually going really well. It's actually going really, really well. So I can't complain.
I am so sorry, man.
No,
Oh, that is such a bummer.
it's
I'm
all
like,
good.
I'm like trying to keep it positive. The Hogs
Yeah.
won, and Jimmy's like, nah, I ruptured my Achilles, and it
Yeah.
just bringing us down. Hey, I'm glad rehab's going well, and I'm sure it's gonna go great for you, and you're gonna be back out there real soon.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll be right back at it. So it's all good.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's get into, I'm sure, something that made you happy, very happy last night, and a lot of Hog fans as well, and that's the Razorbacks finally
Yes.
getting an
Mm-hmm.
SEC win.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, this game was a tale of two halves because if you watched the first half, some people even turned off the game because people left the stands. You know, they did not want to watch this second half after what happened in the first half. The Hogs shot very poorly. I think they were 9 of 27 from the floor, 1 of 11 from the three. It was just bad shooting, bad basketball. They didn't look like they had a lot of effort, a lot of energy. Okay, so Coach Cal takes them into the locker room. And then we see a different team. They come out there. They have grit.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they've been talking about all week long. They play with effort. They play with physicality. Adu Thero looks awesome. Carter Knox steps up. And this is awesome to see from this team because we haven't seen it this year. And then also, it's a team playing without Boogie Fland right now. They're not going to have him for the rest of the season as he's going to rehab from that hand injury and having surgery on his UCL and his right thumb. So your overall thoughts on the game, because I got to know, being a former Hog, I mean, just your thoughts overall.
I think, especially for me, you like to see resilience from teams, especially when it's easy when things are going good to be up and like keep playing. Like it's easy to show up every day, play games the right way, do the right things when things are going well. So to see a team that's been down, they've been losing basketball games, I feel like it's a possible turning point. I don't know because I'm not there every day in the locker room, but I do think there's make or break points in seasons where things are going bad. Either you're going to gear up, come together and play, or you're going to fold. So to see that from them, it's still showing signs of life, which is always good. So you want to see if they can build off things like that. But to build off resilience more than anything else is huge for me, especially as a basketball player, especially when I'm in guys in the locker room with them. Like, I want to be with guys that when things aren't going well back against the wall, they're willing to turn it around and keep playing.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something big there, which is that it's a mindset thing, a mentality of these guys. I remember back in your last season with the Hogs, I think y'all went on a 5-game losing streak in the SEC, and
Yeah.
it was like very close losses, like some in overtime and just really tough losses. And that can affect you as a player. I mean, how did you guys bounce back from that and start winning again and get out of that losing mentality? Because I think that's one of the toughest things to go through as an athlete is just changing that mindset from, man, we're on this losing streak, we can't win a ball game, to now going and saying, no, we're even down in the first half by 12. You know, we're down going into the locker room. How do they do that? How does that happen? I mean, is that something that the coaching staff can help with, or you as an athlete have to go, no, we got this?
I think winning is such a small margin. I think when we see box scores, like whether you lose by 20 or whether you lose by one, I don't think people realize how small of a margin both of those really are. Because there's a lot of things that can go on in the course of a game that make you lose by one, or a lot of things that are really small, miss shot here, miss assignment here, that build up to where you lose by 20. But it's a lot of fixable things. I think it starts with players. At the end of the day, there's only so much a coach can do. Like there's only so much a coach can either yell at you or motivate you to want to get out there and play, but it really comes down to the guys that are on the court, the guys that are on the bench, really having that mentality to want to win. I know for us, um, the way we started, we knew what we could be because we started so well. I think like 11-1 or 10-1, whatever it was. And we know, I think within that, we had lost Isaiah Joe too. So we knew like we get him back. It's just a little things here and there, even without him. And we still had a chance like to make the tournament. Just like this team has an SEC play, there's a million things that can happen. If you turn it on now, the way you play in the tournament, you can get bids and how things go nowadays. So I think it just starts with the players and asking yourselves how you want the season to be remembered. It can turn around just as quickly as it went downhill. So it's one of those things that's really up to them.
I think I like what you say there about the coaching staff because a lot of people go, well, it's on Coach Cal. It's on Coach Cal to get their mindset right. And that's something that he emphasized in the post-game press conference last night. And he said, look, I've been showing the players that even my mindset can affect them and my mindset going forward throughout the season can actually play an effect on how they do, but it does start with them. I mean, talk kind of a little bit about that and just going into the athlete's mind there. And how do you reset your mind? Even you mentioned Isaiah Joe, hey, we're going to get him back. Well, they're not going to get Boogie back. It doesn't look likely, right? And so that to me is like maybe that's a motivation factor for them. Hey, we've lost one of our best players, but now we all have to step up and be good in his absence, right? I mean, is that kind of what you think that mindset could be?
For me, it always comes down to a mindset of a player. I'll never speak for other players. I know I can speak for me and the guys I've played with. It's always been a mindset of like, at the end of the season, I like as hard as it is, the season ends up on the players. Like whether we're good or bad, that's on us. So for me and the guys we were with, it's sort of like, do we want to end the season like being losers? Like at the end of the day, you either win the game or you lose it. It comes down to that. So I'd at least want to go out swinging, just from my perspective. So when guys go down, it's just opportunity for guys that aren't playing as much to get out there. For me, that's a huge motivational factor. You came here to play. Here's your opportunity to play. So all those feelings you may have sitting over there built up of like, if I was out there, I would have done this, that, or the third. I mean, here's your opportunity to go show it and go do it. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. So I think these guys are in a really good position. I think all the guys that are there, you're going to get an opportunity to play, going to get an opportunity to show what you're about. But I think for teams, it's the building block of anything. Before you get to X's and O's, before you get to the coach should have done this, that, and the third, it's like a willingness and resilience to play. And I feel like up until that last half of that game, they haven't showed it. Now they have showed it. So now it's like, okay, we got the first building block out the way. Like you guys show you have heart, you're willing to go out there and play. Now you can build off that, and then you can get into conversation to whether what you think the X's and O's should be, what you think strategy should be from there.
I like what you mentioned there because that's what we've been saying is like you just have to have the effort, the fight, the physicality, and they just haven't shown that. And so it's frustrating to watch those games and see that because you're going, what's going on, guys? Come on. You love the game of basketball. We know you do. You want to win these games. So just show it. Have that effort, have that fight. And that's why I love watching these guys play in the second half. Speaking of some guys with effort and fight, I mentioned them early on, but Adu Thero, man, 17 points last night, leading the team, 11 rebounds. I think it was his fourth career double-double. Awesome for him. But he had Carter Knox behind him, a freshman stepping up, 13 points, 6 rebounds. He could have had a double-double. I felt like he was playing hard enough to do that.
Yeah.
What do you see in this team and this lineup now with Boogie Flan not playing, right? They've had to switch things up. It's point guard by committee, as they say, right? DJ Wagner's playing it now, but Nelly Davis needs to step in that spot too. They could see Billy Richmond there. It's guys who need to step up, and we saw Adu step up in that second half. He's a guy that when he takes over, he takes over. He's so
Hmm.
athletic. It's so fun to watch. I loved Carter Knox, though, too. As a freshman, it's cool to see that. I mean, for you, what do you see from this team? I mean, obviously the fight they had in that second half, but how can they go and replicate that moving forward?
I think first you got to have a head of the snake. I think Adu has been that all year for the team. So to have him step up in big moments like that, yeah, that's something you got to be able to count on each and every night. Whether the numbers are there or not, just that mentality, how you play, has to be there every night from him, especially leading the charge. I think with Fland out, it's a lot of things that you may have to change up the strategy a little bit because where skill lacks, I think you got to start mixing things up, being a little bit more creative, even from a player standpoint, going out there. Teams will probably guard you differently. Teams will probably have a different strategy versus y'all. So it's about being able to adapt. Different guys stepping up each night. Like I said, I think Adu has to be the one each and every night, but then you got to be able to have different guys. Maybe it's Wagner one night, maybe it's another guy another night. Just be able to step up when the time's needed because every game's different. Your skill set for different teams may shine with against different teams. I know when I played some games, me in the mid range is going to shine better than Mason or Isaiah, but then other games, those guys are going to step up and play well. Maybe another game, somebody's coming off the bench and playing well. So it's a lot of different things, a lot of twists and turns that go throughout each game. So you got to approach each game as its own thing, it's its own entity with different guys being willing to step up.
Is there a certain player that you want to see step up a little bit more? I know everybody has a kind of different answer to this. I know some people want Nelly Davis, Jonas Adu. Is there a guy on this team right now that, look, they're going to need if they want to win more SEC games and possibly have a chance of making that NCAA tournament?
I think it's more of a by committee thing for me. From what I see from them, I'd like to see just a little bit more utilization of the skill sets that they do have. I think on paper they're like, for me, probably top five most athletic teams in college basketball in general. I'd like to see them try to get up and down a little bit more in half court, not be so much top of the key ball screen type stuff, more probably slashing, getting guys to use their God given athletic ability in the half court, which is hard to do in college because you can stand in the paint, but also there's ways to do it. Just maybe cutting guys off the wings, creating different gaps instead of trying to isolate so much. But that's just me going into my basketball head. So, but I think it's a by committee thing for sure, and just utilizing the abilities that they do have because you are who you are at this point in the season as a player and sort of as a team. Like there's not going to be dramatic changes, but I do think it's little things that they could do.
Jimmy, this is a basketball show. We want you to go into your basketball
Yeah.
knowledge. We love that. The Hog fans are sitting there going, give us more, give us more. We love to see it. There's been a lot of talk about this team this year and just, Coach Cal, a lot of pressure on him and the entire team, honestly, just because it's his first season and getting over, doing things a little differently. When he took over and it first started the gig, he was kind of like, look, I only want 9 guys. I only really want
Hmm.
9 guys. I want to only go 9 deep, really. And they've filled out the roster. It's just that's their core set of guys
Yeah.
that they go to. And I know he's been criticized for that. Even me, I've kind of said, look, it's great in theory, but now you're seeing kind of the issues of that with the injuries that they've had and things like that. I talk about on the show with a lot of people because there's so many criticisms of what this team has done this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. Do you almost think that a win over Georgia can be the turning point of the season that these guys need? I mean, they have the talent. They can, and now we see that they can have the physicality and effort. They did it in
Hmm.
the second half against Georgia. Do you almost think that, look, this is kind of the wake up call they needed? The flip has been switched. We can go through and do this, or are you kind of still in wait and see mode with them?
Me personally, probably wait and see because okay, you got the effort part, but the talent that's there still isn't basketball wise what I would like to see or what fans would like to see. So like I feel like the basis of basketball should be okay, go out there and play hard. But I shouldn't have to tell you to play hard. So but now that we got that out the way, it's like congrats. But now let's get into the nitty gritty of things that's gonna actually help us win at the level you want to win in. I know there's some teams that they're playing really good basketball, but the effort just isn't there, which is it's rare, but I have seen it where yeah, you're doing the right things, like the offense looks crisp, you're in the right positions. It's just a lack of real effort there. I feel like it's reversed with Arkansas. Like I need to see that talent play to the level of that talent. So now I want to see the basketball side of things, like the adjustments on defense, adjustments on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Going forward, the SEC is so tough. It's a gauntlet. I mean, this team has the ability to go and win more games. It's
Mm.
just will they? Like you said, you're right.
Yeah.
You've seen the effort, you've seen the first part, but you shouldn't have to go in there and be like, guys, play hard, right? They should be motivated to do that. One of the things I want to ask you about, because you were a leader on your team, and you had a lot of leaders on your team. And if you go through and look at squads in history, in Arkansas basketball history, you can go through and say, there was leaders here. There was leaders here. You can identify all the leaders on the different good ball clubs that Arkansas has had. When I look at this team, one of the criticisms that I really have of it is I've been asking all season long, who is that leader? Who is that? And sometimes I feel like they want to push it on, they wanted to push it on Boogie, right? Boogie's the leader, Boogie's the leader. Well, now that Boogie's gone, right? We kind of saw leadership by committee a little bit the other night. They kind of all stood up and said, "We're done with this. We're done being called punks in the SEC. We're done with this. We want to step up and do something." It was cool to see Adu start talking, DJ start talking. I think it was Carter as well, who in one of the timeouts he was getting in, and talking to people. Do you think now they're starting to realize a little bit? Look, we do need a leader on this team, and maybe we haven't stepped up enough, or do you still kind of feel like they don't really have a true leader?
That's always been interesting. I again, it's hard outside looking in because leadership is more of a personality trait. Uh, there's some guys that are really good leaders, but it's straight by example. Like they won't say much. At times, I know when I was playing, I was looked at as a leader. I do say stuff, but a lot of the times it's more lead by example of like you're going to do the right thing. I think in critical moments or in certain moments when people need to say something, I will step up and say stuff. But a lot of the time, it's like I'm one of those you need to be self-motivated. I think basketball's cutthroat in general. I think sports should be cutthroat. And if you're not willing to just go out there and play hard or like do certain things, a grown man shouldn't have to tell a grown man what to do. So I mean, there is times, yes, you need a leader to step up. I think it hot take, it's a little bit overrated. I think we got a coach. He gonna tell us what to do. Man, we need to go out there and do our jobs. Of course, at times in the midst of a game or in the midst of a locker room, yeah, a player needs to step up and say certain things to other players. But I'm really big on being self-motivated and things like that. Just from watching them, I would point to Adu just because the way he plays, it's like he's doing everything that you would want a coach to do. At times, yeah, I'm cool with different guys stepping up, but for Arkansas, I just think the biggest thing is just the basketball side of things and just really just finding ways to utilize that talent the way they need to be utilized. Not saying that's a Cal thing. It's a little bit him, a little bit players, really understanding your game and learning how to put yourselves in the right positions. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it, honestly.
Do you think why is it taking this team so long to find that out, find their identity, find the things you're talking about right there, where it's like, okay, we've tapped into the effort side, but now we have to tap into the basketball side of things. And so why do you think, because there's a lot of teams that at the beginning of the season in non-conference play, that's when you're figuring stuff out, right? That's when you're tinkering things. That's when you're like, okay, we figured out this about your game and now we can go back and utilize it better. Why do you think, in your opinion, I guess, I know it's hard when you're not in that locker room, you're not around Coach Kyle, you're not around these players, but why do you think that it's just taken this long to kind of say, okay, and realize that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think honestly, just knowing basketball and just knowing different things. Cal teams in general have played the same sort of type of style where you can have a couple really good guards that I can just roll you out there and say, go get it. And then surrounding them with either athletes or some really good bigs. And I can usually out talent teams. I know when I was there, they had my freshman year of Jamal Murray. I can roll him the ball out and say, go get it. Isaiah Briscoe, Tyler Eulis. Like these are guys I could tell a 10-year-old to go coach him, and those guys are going to ball regardless. My last year, Arkansas, they had Tyrese Maxey. So it's this year they had, I feel like the style leans towards Boogie Flan. That's why he does so well because you can really roll him the ball out and say, go hoop. I think the issue now with college basketball, not an issue, it's a good thing, is that especially with NIL and the transfer portal, teams are about even in talent. You got a lot of older guys that can really hoop, can really ball. So it's hard to just roll it out there and say, go be better than teams. So now I think it really comes down to who's going to best utilize their talent. And I think Arkansas, talent wise, has a lot of things going for them. I just think their style leans towards an old Cal style. And I think it needs a little bit of an update just outside looking in.
I think that's a really good take on it. I really like what you said. And also you mentioned NIL and the transfer portal, something, other people have noticed and I've made a point of as well is college basketball as a whole is changing because of that. You're also keeping guys in your system for longer. You're not just
Hmm.
taking Coach Cal. I mean, he likes to have one and dones, right? He likes to take that talent. Here you go, plug and play, get out on the court. Like you said, I can put the ball in your hands. I know you're going to hoop. And then, hey, go to the NBA. Good job. You did what
Hmm.
you needed for a year. But now you're seeing teams go, okay, can we keep guys around for another year? Alabama's a good example of that, where they've kept guys around for another year and they've
Yep.
gone, okay, can we develop them and tweak them and change their game so that they're even better under what we need for them? And so I think you're exactly right. It's kind of like, there was an article that came out from Jeff Goodman and said, another SEC coach said Coach Cal was archaic. And I think archaic is a harsh term for it. But I
Hmm.
think coaches now, and you could go up and down college basketball. You could go the D2 level, the D3 level, and you could ask them, and they're all saying it's changing and you're having to adapt. And if you can't
True.
adapt, you're going to be left in the dust. And so I guess for you, do you feel like maybe this is Coach Cal's first year to figure out, okay, maybe what I'm doing needs to be adapted? And do you think that that could be something he's discovering throughout the season?
I think that could be part of it. Yeah, part of the conversation. I think coaches do two things. Coaches have two boxes. Really, really good coaches will get the team they have. They have a system they like, but they'll adapt the system to whatever players they have. And then you see a lot of coaches that have a system and they just try to mix and match players into the already carved out system, which I think in this day and age in basketball, that probably worked back in the day. I have a system. I'm a recruit. I'm gonna just mix and match guys in, and then they're gonna play the way I want them to play. Versus some nowadays in basketball, you got to get the players you have and figure out what works for them. And I think we'll see that more probably throughout this year, but also as the years to come, next year, the year after that, is getting the guys and really just seeing like, okay, what's going to work specifically for them? Because maybe what I like to do and what got me this far, which was really good, just isn't working now.
I want to ask you a little bit before we run out of time here, because I have the Zoom and it yells at me
Yeah.
when everybody knows on this show. They kind of make fun of me as they're like, Courtney, the Zoom thing keeps popping up.
Yeah.
Until there it is, running out of time already.
Yeah.
I knew it was happening. But I do want to ask you about looking ahead. I know you can't look too far ahead in the SEC. It's really hard to do that just with the league and how tough it is. I mean, Florida almost lost to South Carolina. The upsets that are happening in the SEC are just crazy. You never know what to expect night to night. But looking ahead a little bit, just to Oklahoma this Saturday, they're back at Bud, which is great. Always being on your home court, that's always an advantage. You know that from playing here. So that's an advantage for them. It's also an Oklahoma team that they can definitely beat. Oklahoma not having the greatest season when it comes to
Mhm.
SEC play. They've only won one SEC game as well. So what do you think this team needs to do to continue this momentum, to continue this, maybe replicate some of the things they did in that second half and play hard with effort against Oklahoma? What do you think they need to do in that game to get a win?
Obviously, we touched on the first thing. Whatever you did for that second half of that Georgia game, I need that same mentality moving forward. I don't know what you did, but go ahead and re up on that. Get a lot more of that. For me, it's just a lot of basketball standpoint stuff. So, like For me, I don't think 68 points a game cuts it. Not at like a high winning level with that team. If you were Virginia, congratulations. Like you probably almost scored the most points in your career ever. Like, congrats. Good job. You scored 68. Team like Arkansas, it's just too low with the talent they have. For me personally, when I watch them, I tell my friends this all the time. I think they should have six guys scoring double digits almost every game. I just personally think the style is a little bit too slow. I think they should stay in transition as much as possible. I don't think half court's their best suit just because of the player type they have. If you are in half court, I think it's a little bit too much standing on wings and top the key like ball screen, ISO. I with the guys they have now, it's no one's like, hey, it's all good, but nobody's game is an ISO. I'm gonna drive by you, make a play. It's fine. There's plenty of ways to play basketball. I'm more of a you got to create gaps, like two gaps, which would mean like if we're playing five out and I get the ball in the corner on the wing, I don't want people standing on top of me. So if I pass it, cut through, because then you create a gap. I feel like that helps guys like Billy. To me, is so athletic. There's no reason he shouldn't average 10 points a game, six off fast break, easy, and then easy to score four and half court. Just by slashing off the corner on a slot drive, just different little things I feel like they could utilize a lot better with their talent and athleticism. Um, I might adopt because I played like this when I was at SMU, and it translated when I came back to Arkansas was we used to crash four guys, so send one back on defense. You'll be surprised how bad guards are at boxing out, especially on defensive rebounds, and how athletic they are. Shot goes up, I'm sending four to the glass, and I'll probably accumulate 60% of those. 50%, that's a really high end. But if you even get 30% of your missed shots back, I don't think you understand how people really understand how many more shots that is, how many more attempts at easy baskets. It's a lot of little minute things I see from Arkansas that I feel like if they did, they would probably be like top 10 in the nation.
Well, you made a great point. I mean, second chance points. I mean, that was from the offensive rebounds. And I mean, 33 second chance points that Arkansas had to Georgia's 16. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I mean, that just shows 18 offensive rebounds for Arkansas, 8 for Georgia. I mean, that was where they shined. You've got to replicate that. You've got to keep doing that. And it's exactly what you said. So, you hope that they can do that. The question is, will they revert back to what we've seen from them in the losses, in the SEC losses, where it's just like, man, this team doesn't look like they've played basketball very long, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so that's harsh. I get that. People are going to be like, Courtney, that's really mean. They just won a game.
No,
I
I'm gonna
know.
be honest. It's like I said, I feel like basketball is cutthroat, especially being on other side of things and doing it professionally. I'm like, I get it. Like it's a cutthroat sport. If you don't want to play it or you don't want to hear the criticism, it's all part of what you got to deal with. Yeah, sometimes it's harsh, but I'm on this side of things of like it's what we sign up for. So you got to take the good with the bad. And I coach used to always tell me it was funny. He was like, if you can't shoot good, just go get the rebound. So it's like,
Yes.
hey, if you gonna be jacking them up, the least you could do is just go get a couple more of the misses and get a layup. So, and I like things like that because there's some ways to score that have zero to do with skill. Second chance points is a complete effort thing. It's all within your own control. Obviously, sometimes the ball may not bounce your way or teams box out this, that, and the third, but there's a lot of ways you can cover up a lot of bad things that happen in basketball by pure effort. And I like running the floor hard. You'd be surprised just by running the floor a little bit harder how many more open layups and open opportunities you'll get. So I think Arkansas at this point in the season is going to be hard to change your style and identity. So just pick up on those things where effort will lead to either more points, more stops, more transition, whatever it is.
Yeah, and you're right. You made the good point that Arkansas thrives when in transition. And how do you do that? That's through effort and through things like we saw last night in that second half. Before we let you go, Jimmy, I have just so much enjoyed picking your brain today about Arkansas basketball. We might have to have you on the show again. You're just so great at this.
Oh, I'm down. I'm down.
Yes, I love it. I love it. But really quickly before you go, we've talked a lot about the negative and like, look, the positive and the negatives, right? But going forward, the SEC is tough. How do you see a path for this team making the NCAA tournament? Is there one in your head, or do you think no? I've not seen enough from this team to say confidently that they can make it this year.
The greatest part is that you don't get ranked preseason without having the skill or people recognizing the skill. So I think, especially when you're trying to get bids, to have a really good conference in the SEC where every time I look up, there's like five teams ranked, and I'm like, okay, that's good because your wins mean more and your losses are diminished, which a lot of conferences don't have. And I think people overlook that of when it's like, okay, you lost, but your losses are diminished a little bit when those teams are really good, rather than being in a okay or mediocre conference where you lose and it means a whole bunch, and then you win and people are like, oh, well, that team's not very good. So that's moving forward. If you think, okay, if we can squeeze out some more wins against either ranked teams or really good teams, it means more at the end of the season to where, okay, you have, I'm pretty sure when we were my year before the COVID thing happened, we had like 10 losses and they were talking about us. If we win more game, we're going to be a automatic last four in bid. So when you think about it like that, it's like, okay, you win a couple more, you stay around that 10, 11 mark loss, win a couple games in the tournament, you're right there because the conference is so good. There's definitely a path. There's 100% a path. So, and when you have a little bit of momentum like the Georgia game, then you're coming back at home, see if you can string a couple wins together. There's definitely hope and definitely a path. So it's not one of those, the season's over, which is a blessing of like the SEC conference.
Absolutely. And they are the best for a reason. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, the league just has so much talent when it comes to up and down it. And also the coaching,
Yeah.
it is so cool to see. I mean, just the coaching in this league. It's really cool to watch every single night. It's been super fun to follow this year. And look, I think Lenardi had in his recent bracket, I think there was like 10, maybe 12 SEC teams in.
Yeah.
I think 12. 12.
Which is crazy. That's an insane number.
It's just insane. And also to your point, I think your team would have absolutely made the tournament that year. I mean, I know circumstances and gosh, what a bummer that y'all didn't get to play because I would have like actually wanted to see your team in the tournament. So it would have
We
been cool to
always
see.
joke that the positive of not playing is like we get to say whatever we wanted. So everyone's always like, I think y'all would have went to the Sweet 16 at least. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's what I think
I think that
too.
as well. You guys
Yeah.
could have won it all. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Oh my gosh, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. Where can people follow you at, or if they want to keep up with you and all the stuff you do?
If you're an NFL fan and you like the Rams, my Twitter, that's all I talk about on there. My Twitter, I think it's Jimmy with 33. Instagram, obviously, I'm always on there. I way more like my faith and things like that, just everyday life stuff. I do a little bit on there, and that's I think it's the same thing. Jimmy with 33 on everything. So
Perfect, perfect. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, and also, I really hope your rehab goes well, man. I know you will. You have that effort. You have that want. It's gonna go great. You're gonna come back better than ever, I'm sure.
appreciate that. And anytime y'all want to do anything, I'm down.
We're
I'm
doing
down.
it
I
again,
got free
okay?
time, so I'm down.
We're doing it again. We're having you on. I bet the comments are going to be like, you need to have Jimmy on again. I will absolutely. If he wants to do it one more time, we will run this back a little later on this season. But thank you so much, Jimmy. As always, I appreciate you
Awesome.
for coming
Appreciate
on.
it. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man.